You're lying in bed, it's late. The phone screen is the only light in the room. Something stopped the scrolling, a thought you didn't invite. It came from nowhere. You started thinking about the fact that one day you won't exist. A second, maybe two, then you opened a new tab. That reflex to escape, to switch, to drown it out feels like weakness, or like something people don't say out loud. But it isn't. The real answer is much older. And far stranger than you think. What you just did may be the single most important architectural decision in all of human civilization. Every religion, every temple, every line carved into a cave wall, all of it is the downstream effect of one moment that happened to our ancestors hundreds of thousands of years ago. The moment when someone first understood, I will die, and couldn't forget it. In 2023, Lee Berger from the University of the Witwatersrand in Johannesburg descends into the Rising Star cave system in South Africa. The tunnels are so narrow that expedition members are selected by shoulder width. 30 meters underground in absolute darkness, his team finds something that cannot be explained, the bones of Homo naledi, a creature with a brain the size of an orange, roughly 1/3 of our volume, by every evolutionary measure. Not the kind of species that should have been thinking about death, but the bones aren't scattered randomly. They are placed in niches in the cave walls, deliberately, carefully, nearby, primitive tools and symbols engraved into rock. Geologists date the burials between 236 and 335,000 years ago. Homo naledi was burying its dead. Hundreds of thousands of years before Homo sapiens existed, we thought the awareness of death was a uniquely human trait. We were wrong, but Berger isn't the first to find something like this. In 1976, Juan Luis Arsuaga from the Complutense University of Madrid begins excavations at the Atapuerca cave site in northern Spain. His goal is standard stratigraphy, nothing unusual. Instead, his team stumbles onto a vertical shaft 14 meters deep. At the bottom lie the remains of 28 human beings, Homo heidelbergensis. They lived approximately 430,000 years ago. The shaft is called the Cima de los Huesos, the pit of bones. Here's what makes this place impossible. The bodies did not fall there by accident. Analysis of the skeletons shows they were carried there deliberately, through a narrow vertical tunnel, in complete darkness with torches or without, and left below. Beside the bones, there is a single object that is not part of any body. A hand axe made of red quartzite. They named it Excalibur. The red color serves no functional purpose. There were no red quartzite deposits anywhere nearby. Someone brought it from far away, specifically for this. Someone 430,000 years ago picked up a red stone, descended into a dark pit, and left it beside the dead. That is not accident. That is ritual. But here's where it gets truly strange. Knowing you will die is one thing. Doing something with that knowledge is another. In 1986, 3 psychologists, Jeff Greenberg, Sheldon Solomon, and Tom Pisczynski from the University of Arizona, publish a theory they call terror management theory. The name says everything. Their central claim, everything humans build, cultures, religions, nations, families, careers, is a defense system against one specific thought, the same one you pushed away a few minutes ago. They take 2 groups of judges. The first group is asked to write about what they feel when thinking about their own death, specifically what will happen to their body. The second group thinks about something neutral. Then both groups review the same legal case. The judges from the first group assign a fine 9 times higher, 9 times, one reminder of death, and people become harder on those who violate the norms of their group. As if the threat of their own disappearance triggers a command. Hold tighter to everything that feels permanent, to values, to being right, to your own. Greenberg and his colleagues call this mortality salience. And they find its fingerprint everywhere. Every flag, every building with someone's name on it, every desire to leave something behind. That is not ambition. That is not vanity. That is a program that runs every time the brain receives the signal. You are finite, and its answer is always the same. Grab onto something that will last. Religion says your soul is eternal. A nation says the cause you die for will live on. Children are the literal continuation of your genetic code. Fame is your name in the mouths of strangers after you are gone. Every one of these structures is built around one unbearable fact. But here's what none of these theories explain. Homo naledi didn't have our brain. It had no language in any meaningful sense, no religion, no concept of an afterlife. That requires a brain of a completely different scale, and yet someone among them picked up a body, carried it deep into a cave, and placed it carefully in a niche in the wall. Anthropologist Barbara King from the College of William and Mary in Virginia studies how animals behave in the presence of death. She documents elephants return to the bones of dead companions years later and touch them slowly with their trunks, as if checking something. As if making sure, crows gather around a fallen bird in silence and go still. No one called them there. They simply come. King calls this biological continuity, a spectrum with an elephant touching bones at one end and a human writing a will at the other. There is no sharp boundary, only degree. This means death touched something in Homo naledi long before it had language to describe it, something that requires no theology, just an unwillingness to leave its own alone in the dark. Now come back to yourself. You're lying in the dark. The thought returns. You already know that reflex, switching tabs, turning on music, texting someone, isn't weakness. It isn't avoidance. It is Homo naledi carrying a body into the depths of a cave. It is a judge setting a harsher sentence. It is an elephant touching bones at dawn. It is the search for an answer to a question that cannot go unasked. Everything you build, relationships, reputation, plans, meaning that is your answer to it, even if you've never said it out loud, especially then. And here is the part that stays with you long after you close this video. Terror management theory was tested not just in courtrooms. Greenberg and Solomon ran over 300 experiments across 26 countries. They found the same pattern every time. When people are reminded of their mortality, they tip more generously to servers who share their nationality. They rate foreign films lower. They sit physically closer to people who agree with them. The entire architecture of human social behavior, who we trust, who we fear, who we love, who we shut out, all of it shifts the moment death enters the room. Even subconsciously, even when the reminder is a single word in a questionnaire, even when the person insists it had no effect on them, you are not exempt from this. Neither is anyone you know. Think about the last time you felt a sudden surge of loyalty to something. Your country, your team, your way of thinking. Think about the last time someone's different opinion felt threatening in a way you couldn't quite justify. Think about the last time you worked late on something that wouldn't matter in 10 years, but felt urgent. Felt necessary, felt like it had to be done. Mortality salience doesn't announce itself. It doesn't arrive as fear. It arrives as conviction. And the researchers found something else, something quieter. And in some ways more unsettling. The effect is strongest, not when people consciously think about death, but when the thought is suppressed, when it's pushed just below the surface. When you open a new tab, the brain doesn't forget. It just routes the energy elsewhere, into certainty, into urgency, into the feeling that what you're doing right now matters more than it did 5 minutes ago, which means every monument ever built, every empire ever raised, every work of art ever created in the history of our species may have come not from inspiration, but from suppression, from the gap between the thought and the open tab, from the 2 seconds before the screen lit up. The Homo naledi who carried that body into the cave didn't have a theory, didn't have a word for what they were feeling, but something in their nervous system registered the absence of another being and couldn't just walk away. That impulse, 300,000 years old, is the same one that makes you check your phone when a conversation gets too quiet, the same one that makes you need the people you love to respond quickly, the same one that makes silence feel like a threat. We are still running that program, all of us, every night. The red axe in the dark pit, Excalibur, lying beside bones 430,000 years ago, is the first human document, the first attempt to say something that would outlast a death. The first draft of everything written, built, and created since. You are doing the same thing, just in a different dark.